I think it's time for a very simple modification to be done to the go-kart. It's time to trim things off a little bit so that I don't hit my knees on this old steering wheel part. Well, here it is. It's not necessarily perfect, nor is it even actually centered, but it's better than it was, and that's all that really matters here. Make it better, don't make it perfect. Now that I've actually got this off though, I think I'm going to take the case off of the go-kart, and since, as we've seen in the last video, the controller is dead in go-kart number 2, so it's now in temporary storage mode. We'll take the case off of this, and I'll put the nice big thick wires that I made for go-kart 2 on go-kart 1. Now that the case is taken off the go-kart, I've got it here, I'm also going to replace this button here. This is the reverse button, and while it sounds like it works, it doesn't, and it's really annoying. And while I'm at it, I might as well replace this switch here. I want to try something out, but I need some metal that I can bend into shape, so it needs to be thin and accessible. But I don't really have any metal just laying around. But I've got a microwave. I hate making unnecessary work for myself, but I'm thinking, since this go-kart number 2 is out of action from having a blow-in motor controller, why don't I take advantage of having the extra batteries laying around, as well as one of the batteries that I've loaned off to a friend, and I can fit another whole battery in here. And then, so I'll use that microwave case, cut that up a bit to make the holding bit for this battery, and just hopefully battery and motor controller can live in unison together. I will have to bend some metal, some tabs, and at the same time I'll be taking off all of the wires and stuff off of these batteries so that I can replace them with the nice new clean ones. I'll also have to make another wire to reach from here around to there. How long do I have before work? 2 hours. I don't think I can do it in that time, but I'm sure it's going to be fun in the end. Whoops, looks like I cut into the wood. Yet again in my genius, I have forgotten to hit record, but I have completed the task. You see, I've bent the metal around here. And it was through some very basic methods. What I did is I had 2 pieces of wood, and I would screw them together with the screw, and then I just whack it with a hammer as hard as I can, which has given me this result. Now the space in here isn't big enough for this end flap bit on the motor controller itself to be sticking out like that. So I'll need to bend it down, which means that I will also need to make a reciprocal type area on this. So I'll need to bend this in a U shape so that I can put a bolt there. Also, all of these edges are very sharp and dangerous to touch. So I should probably tidy them up a little bit and do a quick test fit to make sure this is even going to work. Oh yeah, that's sitting in there just nicely. That sits perfectly. Turns out my measurements weren't so great and the metal isn't as strong as I had anticipated. So I'm cutting up a small piece of wood to wedge in between the battery and the controller to help support everything a little bit better and hopefully avoid something breaking. Now it's on to the wiring, getting all of the onboard wires sorted out and connected correctly, ready for my battery cables to come in. All freshly made, slightly modified, and ready to go in this cart with this new battery layout.
It is time for the first test of this controller with 72 volts. Still works.
With all systems tested and proven working, it is now time to put everything back together. And now it's ready to be taken out for a fun little night test. But first, let's add a headlight. Mail time. First package. Package in a package. What a surprise. This package has two button types. We have a power button which latches on, and then we've got a simple push it in and it pops back out momentary button. This will be for the go-kart. So this is to power it on, get things running. And this one is to put it in reverse. It also lights up to help indicate that it's actually in reverse. Battery leveler for a second go-kart. USB A to A, I've got a couple of devices which require this kind of connection. I needed another one. I got 3 of these HDMI to RJ45 connections. Now what this enables me to do is use your normal internet cable to transmit an HDMI signal. Of course it only goes, I think, about 30 meters at max. This is purely for a potential up-and-coming little project in the garage. If I never get around to it, you may never know what it is actually for. But to put it simply, I'm going to have a couple screens show the same things, but be in physically different areas. So I had a bit of trouble last night. I was doing some night riding, and, well, this bit of metal has pretty cleanly snapped off of here. And it kind of, it's what holds the front wheel on. And I also snapped this ball joint here. So the go-kart is out of action. No, I didn't get it on video because I was just cruising up and down the road going full speed. Basically what happened is I was going in a straight line and then I turned sharply and it snapped off, making it so that I just kept going straight and I hit a curb pretty hard, so I would assume there is damage elsewhere. But I'm hoping, at least initially, I'll just fix this one point of damage and be able to play on it again. That said, as you may have noted from previous videos, I'm not very good at welding. To get things started, I put that little piece into a vise and clean up the surfaces, removing the excess weld that was on there previously, hopefully making it easier for me to complete this repair. I then move on to the go-kart itself and clean up the edges there with my welder standing by. Once the edges are sufficiently cleaned, I can then start trying to weld this bit back on and secure everything in place. I chose to use my MIG welder here just to see if it was an appropriate tool to use for the job, hoping that I was able to get a good enough weld in place that this is going to hold on and stay on. I did use a grinder to tidy up the welds afterwards, but that doesn't hide the fact that I have no real training in how to weld, and I'm more or less just guessing based on a couple of YouTube videos and how I think it should look and feel. Right, now that I've got that little bit of welding done and I've tidied it up semi-nicely, you know, it doesn't look professional, but it looks a dang sight better than what it did a few seconds ago. I can put the wheel back on and we'll put some weight on it. Actually, let's just whack it with a hammer. See. Okay, little hammer test, we're good. Let's put the wheel back on, put some weight on it, and see if it actually holds up. Now I hate doing this, but, well, this go-kart's not going to be working for a little bit, and I am completely out of budget. I have no budget left whatsoever. I have purchased a new motor controller for this go-kart, and that was crazy expensive. I don't think it would cost so much. So, it's time for it to donate a little back to me before I donate too much to it. Now, taking this off of this basically fine go-kart does mean that I'll at least have one working go-kart, but it also means that later I'm going to run into the exact same problem and I'm going to have to find a new one of these. Hopefully it won't be too difficult to find one. Though, after a quick look on AliExpress, I've managed to find the same one that I've currently got. So I'll chuck in an order for 2 of those, and well, they get here when they get here, I guess. Maybe I should get 3? Man, I'm so far out of money, I can really only afford 1, but if I get 3, then I get free shipping, and then I've got a couple spare. With this harvested part feeling like more of a harvested organ, I install it onto Go-Kart 1 and ensure that it is sitting right and will hopefully last the journey. Honestly, it seems to be holding up pretty well. I am hesitant, but I'm almost about to say that it's mint and doesn't need any more further work to it. But I know I'm wrong. I know I'm no professional welder. I did 3 or 4 layers of welding on that thing just to make it look a little bit nice and to fill in all the gaps. But that's also probably because I'm not using any argon gas or anything with the MIG welder. I do feel like the MIG welder did a better job than the TIG welder or arc welder. But that also may be just due to my not having much experience, my inexperience. So yeah, I'd say this kart is doing pretty dang well right now. While my go-kart was up and running, my friend was facing the same issue, but on the opposite side. He too had to clean up his parts, weld them back on, and put everything back together. Last night I ended up cutting a new bit of tubing and welding on that tube, as well as welding on an extra plate around the outside to hopefully reinforce it enough to the point where I'm not going to have to re-weld everything back together again. That's right. In between filming my friend, I was working on my go-kart in the background and neglected to film the work I was doing or even mention that my weld snapped and I'm having to do this all over again. Fingers crossed. Now, all I've got to do is quickly grind off all the excess gunk, maybe fill in some holes, and then I should be able to give it a little test, just zipping up and down the road to see if the wheel is going to stay on for longer than 5 minutes. As expected, the go-kart is up and running again. But for how long? I do have some plans to do some pretty rough driving with it. It's time for a bit of a nightlight. You see, sometimes it is very early in the morning and I need to leave for bed. But I don't want to turn the roof light on because that illuminates the whole roof and spills out down the hallway and, well, it just simply wakes other people up. So, in order to solve that problem, I think it's time to put some LED lights behind the headboard. Unfortunately, the cats have gone along and scratched up the top of this nice new headboard that we've had for many years. So putting lights on the top isn't that great of an option, but we can always put the lights on the back and have it illuminate the wall, and since it's white, the light is going to bounce off the wall and come out to the rest of the room, which should be just enough to be able to light up the room nicely and not wake people up, but still allow you to see a few things. For this project, I've decided to put together my own ESP8266 circuit board with a circuit that drops from 12 volts to 5 volts to power it, so we can connect it to this 12 volt pixel LED strip. Because it is such a simple circuit, I'm able to put it together in under 20 minutes. And with everything tested and working, it's time to begin installing it on the headboard. Let's get this bed pulled out from the wall. I know I've got a good amount of lead running up to the controller, so I can start this pretty much anywhere. But I know that I'll be starting this end because this is the end it will be plugged into. So I will begin putting it up here, and I'll quickly measure it out to ensure that I have definitely got enough to do my plan. Ah, I do. Now, I'm sure some people are going to cringe at this, but I will be using a staple gun to lock everything in place, because using the double-sided sticky stuff that's on the back of these light strips is completely useless. It is only good for a temporary solution. I have used some very expensive light strips before for jobs that I've been hired to do, and yeah, those strips, sticky stuff on the back, will last a little longer, but not much longer. So I always go for a more long-lasting solution so that I know that it's going to last. Also, when I am stapling these in with the staple gun, I'm making sure that the staples are not going to pierce into the LED strip, and I'm also holding it very lightly. I'm not pushing against it, I'm holding it lightly because this is fabric with MDF wood behind it, and also I don't want to cut this light strip. So holding it lightly, the staple is inserting into that MDF, but it's not going in deep enough to cause any damage to the LED strip. You can always go back and add a couple extra staples along the way if you think there's a section where it's sagging a little bit, but I think my spacing here has been good enough that it's not too loose. Now, we've only got a short little bit at the end here. Some people might want to keep it on, but for me, I'm simply going to cut it off with a pair of scissors and pull out the staple, which I can just reset. And there we go. Plug it in. Now, initially, it's a little underwhelming because it doesn't quite go the whole way along. But that's because you just need to tell it how long this light strip is. On its webpage, go into the config, LEDs. It's currently at 30, which is just about halfway. So let's assume that we've got 59 because I had to cut some off. Save, and now they're all lit. With the control page still open, you can browse through some of the effects that you now have access to with these LEDs. Since everything's working and in place, we can now push the bed back in and marvel at this simple addition. I know a lot of people do enjoy a bit of rainbow vomit from their RGB LEDs, but my personal preference is the effect called plasma, and I usually choose a blue, purple, white combination, which gives this nice, easy, relaxing effect. Because it's a pixel LED strip, I'm easily able to turn off this middle section, leaving both ends of the headboard going, as well as turning off the other end of the headboard, keeping just my section alive so that I can see what I'm doing if I'm sitting here pretending to read a book. It's pretty unlikely I'd read a book. I'd rather just go to sleep.